By Sri Lanka's best internet package for online learning and online working with many amazing offers. Call 1212 for more information. Sri Lanka Telecom.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, D-Day. Supreme Court adjourns first day of fundamental rights petition hearings as Attorney General presents committee stage amendments in court. Celebrating friendship. Professor Sirimal Jayaratne says learn from but not try to copy China.
We are going to copy not only China, any other country. That is, I think, to my understanding, it is stupid.
While acting Chinese ambassador says Chinese friendship comes with no strings attached.
China will never pursue develop interest at the expenses of Sri Lanka.
Sinister moves. Sri Lanka hits back at Moodys' downgrade, calling it similar to the premature and reckless moves at the end of the civil war. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 29th of September 2020.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
Nava sunlight sakura. Then dikukal pavathina sakura mal suandin.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammik Ekanaika. Let's start with your local stories. The 5-member bench of the Supreme Court concluded its first day of hearings of the 39 fundamental rights petitions today, as the petitioners argued that some provisions included in the 20th Amendment's draft violate a number of fundamental rights and other provisions guaranteed by the current Constitution. Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira stated that several amendments to the bill will be made at the Parliamentary Committee stage. A document detailing the new amendments was submitted to the court by the AG's department. However, the petitioners announced that they would only be challenging the preliminary draft.
A total of 39 fundamental rights petitions challenging the 20th Amendment to the Constitution have been filed so far and were heard today by a 5-member bench of the Supreme Court, chaired by Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya. The petitioners allege that certain provisions of the 20th Amendment's draft, introduced by the government in Parliament, violate a number of fundamental rights and other provisions guaranteed by the current Constitution. These include the deprivation of the opportunity to file fundamental rights petitions against the President, reduction of the powers provided to the Election Commissioner to order criminal prosecution against violators of election laws, the removal of the officers of the President and Prime Minister, in addition to several other state institutions, from the purview of the Auditor General, and the provision of powers to the President to dissolve a new Parliament within 1 year of sitting. The petitioners also point out that it includes prejudicial provisions, such as the resumption of emergency bills. Accordingly, the petitioners have sought a ruling stating that such questionable clauses must be approved both by a public referendum, in addition to a 2/3 majority vote in Parliament. Representing the government, Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira told the bench that several amendments to the bill will be made at the Parliamentary Committee stage. The Attorney General added that a document detailing the amendments to be made during the committee stage has already been filed before the court through a motion. Accordingly, among the amendments expected to be tabled by the government at the committee stage are the extension of the time period before the President can dissolve a new Parliament to 2.5 years, the increasing of the members of the proposed Parliamentary Council to replace the Constitutional Council to 9 members, and increasing the members of the Election Commission to 5. Further, it has also done away with the proposal to exempt the Presidential Secretariat and the Prime Minister's office from being audited by the Auditor General's Department. In addition, it has also been proposed to do away with the clause that prevents amendments to any bill that are deemed to be contrary to its original essence and principles. The list of amendments also includes some new clauses which are not included in the 20th Amendment Bill, but were to be added to the bill during the committee stage. These include a new clause that any fundamental rights petitions filed against the Attorney General for any action or inaction by the President until the passing of the 20th Amendment in Parliament will have to be heard and concluded. After receiving copies of the documents containing the amendments, the counsels for the petitioners stated that they did not intend to comment on the proposed amendments. The petitioners further stated that they will only be challenging the preliminary draft of the bill, as there may be a possibility that the amendments could or could not be made during the committee stage. Attorney-at-Law Suren Fernando, appearing for the General Secretary of the Samarijana Balavegya, Ranjit Madhuva Bandara, stated that many of the provisions in the proposed 20th Amendment Bill adversely affected the fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution and accused the President of attempting to elevate himself above the law. Meanwhile, Counsel for the Centre for Policy Alternatives, M.A. Sumandiran, alleged that certain provisions of the proposed 20th Amendment Bill attempt to transfer some of the powers of Parliament to the President. He said the amendment gave the President the power to refer a bill rejected by Parliament to a referendum, which was unconstitutional. Following this, at around 4:45 p.m. today, the bench decided to adjourn the hearing of the petitions until tomorrow. Meanwhile, several interim petitions were also filed today by Ministers Nimal Siripala de Silva, Gamini Lokuge, Professor G.L. Piris, MP Attorney-at-Law Sagar Karivasam, and Venerable Omar Sapatera, seeking permission to intervene in these petitions.
The government says that a draft of a new constitution will definitely be put to a referendum, despite the public mandate already being given via the general election. Addressing a meeting with electronic and print media heads and editors today, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa said that his stance on the 20th Amendment to the Constitution is the same as the government's, and that he does not believe the amendment reduces the Premier to a mere symbol.
අගමැතිතුමනි 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනය ගැන ඔබතුමාගේ මතය තාම එළියට අවිල්ලා නැහැ.
ආණ්ඩුවක් වුණාම ආණ්ඩුව ගන්න මතය තමයි මගේ වන්නේ.
අපි හැමෝටම විවිධ අදහස් තියෙනවා. ඒ ගැන අපි දැවැන්ත සංවාදයක මේ වෙලාවේ යෙදිලා ඉන්නවා. නමුත් අවසාන වශයෙන් ආණ්ඩුවේ මතය විදිහට අපි සාමූහික මතයකට ඇවිල්ලා ඒක තමයි රට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නේ.
අගමැතිතුමනි 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනය හරහා අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයා නැවත යම් තරක් දුරකට නාමික මට්ටමකටපත් වෙනවා. ඔබ එකඟද ඒක?
නෑ මං හිතන්නේ මේ කියලා. කියන තරම් එහෙම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ. අගමැතිවරයාගේ අතේ තමයි තියෙන්නේ. මල්ලේ තියනවද නැද්ද කියලා.
අගමැතිතුමා අලුත් ව්‍යවස්ථාවක් ගේනවා කියලා දැන් අලුත් ව්‍යවස්ථාව කොයි කාලෙ විතර ගෙනෙනවා.
තාක්ෂණ කොමිටියක් අපි දාලා තියෙනවා.
අද ලංකාවේ සිටින කීර්තිමත්ම නීතිඥවරයෙක් වෙන ජනාධිපති රොබර්ට්ස්ලා මැතිතුමා ඇතුළු කාටවත් විවේචනය කරන්න බැරි විද්වත් මණ්ඩලයක් අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලය විසින් ඒ සඳහා පත් කරලා තියෙනවා.
දැන් නව ව්‍යවස්ථාවක් ගෙනපුවාම මේකට ජනමත විචාරයක් අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ජනමත විචාරණය යොමු කරනවා.
හැබැයි ඉතින් පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණයේදී ජනමතය දීලා තියෙනවා.
19 ඉවත් කරනවායි කියන එක කෙටි කාලීන කළ යුතුම දෙයක්. මොකද ජනතාවගෙන් අපිට 3/2ක් බලය ඉල්ලුවේ වෙන මොනවටද? බඩු මිල අඩු කරන්නද, රස්සා ප්‍රශ්න හදන්නද නැහැ. 3/2ක් බලය ඉල්ලුවේ 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනය 19 ඉවත් කළ යුතුමයි කියන මතය කරන්න තමයි බලාපොරොත්තු.
මීට සති කිහිපයකට කලින් ප්‍රවෘත්තියක් පළ වුණා ඔබතුමා අවුරුදු 2කින් දේශපාලනයෙන් විශ්‍රාම යනවා කියලා.
නෑ එහෙම එකක් නෑ. දේශපාලනඥයෝ කවුද විශ්‍රාම ගියේ?
ඊයේ උතුරු නැගෙනහිර හර්තාල් ක්‍රියාත්මක නැගුවා. ඒ කියන්නේ දිලීබන්ගේ සිහිපත් කරන්න ඕන කියලා. දිලීබන්
බොරු වැඩ දිලීබන් මර්ඩර් මගේ මල්ලි එක කිඩ්නැප් කරා. මගේ මල්ලි එයා කිඩ්නැප් කරා. මගේ නාදය උඹ කට්ටිය කිඩ්නැප් කරා. එයා මර්ඩර්. දේශපාලනට තමයි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ මේක කතා කරන්නේ.
උතුරේ හා නැගෙනහිර තත්ත්වය ආරක්ෂාවට රටේ ආරක්ෂාවට තර්ජනයක්ද?
මං හිතන්නේ රටම ආරක්ෂිතයි. අපි බොහොම පරිස්සමෙන් ඒ ගැන කටයුතු කරගෙන යනවා. උදේනි තත්ත්වයක් આવොත් මේක පෞද්ගලික කාලයට විදිහට තමයි උත්තරේ.
Now, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa states that in addition to the government measures to promote the living conditions of estate community, private estate companies should also fulfill their part of the responsibilities. He made these comments during a discussion with representatives of the State Ministry of Estate Housing and Community Infrastructure today. A discussion on the future plans of the State Ministry of Estate Housing and Community Infrastructure was workshopped today at the Presidential Secretariat under the patronage of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. During the meeting, the President pointed out that the living condition of the estate community should be developed in the very areas they live in. The project of building 4,000 houses for the estate community, which commenced under Indian aid in 2016, also came into discussion. However, only 669 houses have been constructed up until now. The officials pointed out that this delay occurred as a result of the practical issues that emerged in providing infrastructure. The head of state said that the quality of the houses can be maintained by assigning the State Engineering Corporation to design the plans for the houses. Furthermore, it was also stated that plantation companies in private sector should also fulfill their responsibility in line with efforts taken by the government in uplifting the standards of the estate community. What's more, the President during the meeting emphasised that steps should be taken by the State Ministry of Estate Housing and Community Infrastructure to uplift the living standards of the estate community by obtaining the assistance of the Ministries of Health, Education, Agriculture, Housing and Sports. Discussions were also held on the importance of providing vocational training to estate youth so that they can obtain NVQ level certificates and guide them to find employment opportunities. We will see you shortly after this break. Stay with us.
Enjoy a very smooth shave with the Bic Easy 2 razor. Bic Easy 2.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, attention fell on the Trincomalee oil tank farm during the Cabinet media briefing today, with Cabinet co-spokesperson Uday Gammanpila saying that talks are underway with India pertaining to the facility, which is presently leased out to the Lanka Indian Oil Company.
Trincomalee tank farm එකේ tank ඒක ආපහු ලබා ගන්න අත්‍යවශ්‍ය. ඒක progress එක මොකද ඔබතුමා දැන් සාකච්ඡා කරනවද ඉන්දියාවත්?
Gratefully mention that Indian government is very cooperative, especially Indian High Commissioner. I am very grateful to him. He's very cooperative, very accommodative to our demand, and they have concerns. So we are ready to address their issues, and I am not ready to disclose the details at this moment because it would disturb ongoing negotiations at the moment. In fact, these tanks have been leased to Lanka IOC. But this is a concern about Indian government, which has been reflected in Indo-Lanka Accord as well. So LIOC, of course, very close to my ministry, they are within my purview. LIOC represents several government institutes which are within my purview. So there is no big issue with LIOC. But there are political sensitivities. So we have to first get those sorted out. Our first discussions will be held with Indian government. Thereafter, implementation, of course, with the LIOC.
පාසල් දරුවන්ගේ නිල ඇඳුම සම්බන්ධව මෙතෙක් කල පිටරටින් ගෙනාපු එක නතර කරලා මේ රටේ නිර්මාණය නිෂ්පාදනය කරන්න තීන්දුව කරලා තියෙනවා. තා කෙටි පති 3ක දෙක 3ක ප්‍රමාදයක් ඇති වෙයි කියලා. නමුත් ඒක අපි ඉවසගෙන ඒ කටයුත්ත කරන්න තීන්දුව කරා. ඒ සියලුම නිල ඇඳුම් අවශ්‍ය ප්‍රමාණය ලංකාවේම නිෂ්පාදනය කරලා ඒ නිල ඇඳුම් ලබා දෙන්නට.
Acting Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Hu Wei, insists that the 2,000-year-old friendship between the two countries will continue to stand the test of time, while assuring that China will never pursue its interests at the expense of Sri Lanka. His comments came at the 71st anniversary celebrations of the People's Republic of China. Also speaking there, Professor of Economics Sirmal Aberatna of the University of Colombo said that instead of attempting to copy China's model, Sri Lanka must learn from the ample economic lessons that are key to its success in the post-COVID-19 environment.
A children's art exhibition organised by the Sri Lanka China Society was held at the BMICH yesterday to commemorate the 71st anniversary of the People's Republic of China. Speaking at the event, Professor Sirimal Aberatna highlighted key areas Sri Lanka can learn from China.
I'm going to say a few words about something fundamentally important, which is that the things that we can learn from China. Somebody can say that, okay, China has a different system, different political economic system. How do we copy China? No, that's not my point. If we are going to copy not only China, any other country, that is, I think, to my understanding, it is stupid. But China has provided us ample lessons to be learned. Number one, massive export growth. If you see a higher growth without export, don't believe in that growth rate because it's not going to last long. Export growth and economic growth, these two things should go together because economic progress of a country is limited by the size of the market, which means actually home market is too small to sustain economic progress. As well as there should be a source of growth, investment. There is enough capital accumulated in major financial sectors in the world, which are seeking the better locations all over the world. Number two lesson. Number three, we used to think that, okay, we need to produce value-added products. But China is the number one assembly point in Asia. A new trade pattern that has expanded enormously over the last couple of decades. In fact, East Asia is the number one region in the world. Number four, when countries develop progress, one of the important changes would be changing urban-rural population shares. And China found this change has not happened adequately over the years. The strategy was to bring millions and millions of people from difficult rural areas to the urban sector. Why? It will make the agriculture more productive. The main problem in our agriculture is too many people produce too little. It will make agriculture more productive, and it will also provide better human resources for industry and service sector.
Further, acting Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka Hu Wei, while paying tribute to the 2,000 years of Sino-Sri Lankan ties, stated that China will never pursue development interests at the expense of Sri Lanka.
Even though with the hindrance caused by the pandemic, China and Sri Lanka have jointly overcome difficulties and pushed forward the development of mega projects. Moreover, the two countries have been working on deepening cooperation in investment, trade, education, government aid, and people-to-people exchange, which is believed to inject more energy into our socio-economic development in post-COVID era. We are fully confident in the future of the bilateral relations. China and Sri Lanka enjoying 2,000 years of friendship. In the modern time, no matter what changes took place in the international landscape or their respective domestic agendas, we have been always supporting each other. We face challenges together, we progress together, we are good neighbors, good friends, and good partners. China attaches great importance to the relations with Sri Lanka. We have no hidden agenda in cooperation between our two countries. China will never pursue develop interest at the expenses of Sri Lanka.
Moving on with other local stories, Parliamentarian Dr. Vijaydas Rajpaksha says that the Easter Sunday terror attacks could have been averted had his statement on extremism made in Parliament been taken seriously by the former government. His comments came as he was cross-examined by MP Mujibur Rahman over a statement Dr. Rajpaksha had made before the Commission on an earlier date. Meanwhile, MP Rahman himself conceded before the Commission that the government of good governance is responsible for failing to prevent the Easter Sunday spate of terror. Parliamentarians, President's Council, Dr. Vijaydas Rajpaksha and Mujibur Rahman were called before the Presidential Commission probing the Easter Sunday terror attacks yesterday. It was pertaining to a request made by MP Rahman to cross-examine MP Dr. Vijaydas Rajpaksha over a testimony he had given before the Commission. Following a brief testimony by Rahman, Dr. Rajpaksha put to Rahman that had attention been given to the statement he made in Parliament 30 months prior to the attack on some individuals in the country joining the so-called Islamic State organization, the Easter Sunday mass murder could have been avoided. To that, Rahman responded, quote, "You were not the only one to mention about extremism. I too lodged complaints with the police about Zahran following the Digani incident, urging for his arrest, saying that there could be a threat to national security." Interdicted DIG Lanka de Silva, who was in charge of the Terrorist Investigation Division, told before the Parliamentary Select Committee that he obtained an open warrant from the Colombo Magistrates Court to arrest Zahran. What happened in the end? Who imprisoned Lanka de Silva with the use of someone called Namal Kumara? That's why I say that an invisible force worked to protect Zahran, unquote. A commission member put to the witness whether it is his view that the government, which was in power from 2015 to 2019, is responsible for failing to prevent the Easter Sunday terror attack, to which Rahman responded in the affirmative. Afterwards, the commission gave Rahman the opportunity to cross-examine Dr. Vijaydas Rajpaksha. Rahman said, quote, "You had included my name when giving a list of names linked to extremism when testifying before the Commission. On what basis did you say it?" unquote. Dr. Rajpaksha's response was, quote, "I didn't give one name but the names of several. I mentioned the names of Hezbollah and Azad Saleh as well. It was with great responsibility that I made a speech on the 18th of November in 2016 saying that people of this country are being linked to extremism. But former Minister Rajitha Senaratne and you challenged this statement. Challenging such a responsible statement made in Parliament means supporting terrorism. This massive loss of life was caused within the act of challenging such revelations. Had the then government given attention to my statement, the Easter Sunday attacks, losing the power of governance, and the UNP's destruction, all three could have been prevented," unquote. Now, various suspects were arrested during today and yesterday for their involvement in drug racketeering and other criminal activities. A suspect was arrested while transporting 653 grams of the drug known as Mandy, and his interrogations led to arrest of an excise guard. Here's a roundup of Sri Lanka's war on drugs and the underworld. A person transporting the narcotic called Mandy was arrested yesterday from the area of Kaluagala. It is the result of an operation conducted with the deployment of an emergency roadblock upon the intelligence unit of the police special task force being tipped off. 653 grams of the said drug was seized from the possession of the suspect. His interrogations, meanwhile, led to an arrest of an excise guard affiliated to the Jayawardhanapura Excise Office while on duty. The Department of Excise has decided to interdict the official in question. Meanwhile, a close associate of prominent drug racketeer Avisaveli Gauss was arrested from the area of Borelle yesterday. Police said that 11.34 grams of heroin was found on the suspect. Elsewhere, an individual named Sandamali Silva, alias Salemulle Sanda, and her husband were arrested by the Colombo Crime Division last evening. The CCD said that the suspects were in possession of 5.5 grams of heroin at the time of their arrest. In the meantime, a close associate of prominent underworld figure in the southern province, Uragaha Michael, was apprehended by the Special Anti-Corruption Unit of the Alpitia Police. 14 packets of heroin amounting to over 2 grams of the substance had been found from the possession of the suspects. In another development, 4 main heroin racketeers who operate in the area of Vallavaya were nabbed by the Uakudaoya police. Police said that over 6 grams of heroin was found from the possession of the suspects, while over 100 packets of the drug were retrieved from the suspect's rectum. In a separate case, 6 suspects were arrested for 3-wheeler theft by the Palyagoda Criminal Investigation Unit. Police said 5 grams of heroin was found on 2 suspects. 10 3-wheelers stolen from various areas were also found by the police. Meanwhile, a foreign-made explosive device was found by the police special task force yesterday from a forest area in Miriswata in Hambantota. Hambantota STF personnel disarmed the device. In the meantime, the anti-corruption unit of the Kakirawa police arrested several suspects from a 9-member gang engaged in selling narcotics using the platform known as Mobile Cash in the areas of Kakirawa and Maradankadavala. Police seized 116.9 grams of heroin and a sum of 140,000 rupees in cash from the possession of the suspects. In another development, 7 suspects were arrested from Tirappani today by the police with 4.4 grams of heroin in their possession. We will see you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, following the surprise downgrading of the country's sovereign rating by ratings agency Moodys Investor Service yesterday, the Ministry of Finance has responded to what it called an erroneous analysis of Sri Lanka's economic and financial strength and external debt service capacity. The statement released last night accused Moodys of failing to do justice to the ground reality of the country's ongoing rapid economic recovery following the COVID-19 slowdown.
The Ministry of Finance issued a statement yesterday denouncing the downgrade of the Sri Lankan sovereign rating from high credit risk rating of B2 to a very high credit risk rating of CAA1, citing a compounding of the country's economic woes by the COVID-19 pandemic. Moodys said that it expects government liquidity and external risks to intensify as the government's external debt service payments amount to approximately $4 billion annually between 2020 and 2025. However, the Finance Ministry hit back at the rating agency, calling it unwarranted, an erroneous analysis, and suggested a reckless reaction. The response added that the report failed to do justice to the ground reality of the ongoing rapid economic recovery, backed by vastly improved business confidence arising from the return of political and policy stability after a lapse of 5 years. Further, the statement reminded Moodys that the government had repeatedly expressed its ability and willingness to meet all its debt obligations. The ministry said Sri Lanka's foreign reserves had improved to $7.4 billion by the end of August, as exports picked up to the pre-pandemic levels of $1 billion a month. It also added that the trade balance improved due to restrictions on non-essential imports due to a ban on vehicles and luxury goods in place since March. Furthermore, the ministry assured foreign investors that all payment transactions for the repayment of the international sovereign bond of $1 billion maturing on 4th October have already been lined up, and funds will be credited on 2nd October. In conclusion, it added that it is puzzling that Moodys has downgraded Sri Lanka on the eve of this repayment, which it calls similar to the previous premature and reckless downgrades by rating agencies in the immediate aftermath of the end of the internal conflict in 2009 and during the political impasse in 2018.
Sri Lankan shares slid today from a more than an 8-month high hit in the previous session, dragged down by losses in conglomerates. The benchmark all-share price index closed down 0.57% at 5,993.55, snapping 3 straight sessions of gains. It climbed nearly 3% yesterday as the more liquid S&P SL20 index closed 16.11 points down at 2,479.61. Now here's a brief report on today's market performance.
Today we had a sovereign downgrade from Moodys, where the credit rating was for Sri Lanka was downgraded by 2 notches to CAA1. So with that downgrade, that was some negative sentiment for the investors, and with that we saw some negativity in the market from the start of the day itself. In addition to that, yesterday we saw a surge in two blue chip companies, Carson's and Bukit Dara, and today the trend reversed and we saw a significant amount of selling pressure in the 2 companies, and with that, coupled with the credit rating decline, saw a complete overall negative sentiment in the market, bringing down the market, the SPI by about 34 points, and then the S&P SL20 also declined close to 20 points. With that, if you take the 2 main shares, weighed Carson's and Bukit Dara weighed heavily towards the negativity of the market.
Now, taking a look at what's happening overseas, the United Kingdom capital London witnessed another spike in new COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations last week, leading to a host of stricter restrictions being put in place to prevent the situation from deteriorating any further. Bringing an update on the current situation there, our correspondent in the UK says that Sri Lankan nationals in the country registered with the Sri Lankan High Commission are still awaiting repatriation flights to fly home safely.
UK is one of the countries with the biggest impact from COVID-19 in Europe, and London is at a very critical point right now. The city has seen a sharp rise in cases, increased number of calls to National Health Service 111 helpline, and the hospital admissions have increased. Over 8 million people in the capital have been warned that new tougher restrictions are likely to come within the next few weeks. Last week actually, UK reported their highest rise in daily COVID cases since the beginning of the pandemic. Prime Minister Boris Johnson this week announced new measures and restrictions. Amongst them are only 6 people can meet from different households, indoors or outdoors, pubs, bars and restaurants to close by 10 p.m, people to work from home where possible, limits on guests at weddings reduced from 30 to 15, fines for not wearing masks. And in terms of economic consequences, in another major development, Chancellor Rishi Sunak announced a new job support scheme in order to avoid a mass redundancies in the coming months. Currently, the UK unemployment is running around 4%, and nearly 250,000 people have lost their jobs due to COVID-19 in the last few months. In terms of the Sri Lankan diaspora in the UK, we believe that there's still a very significant number of people who are registered with the High Commission waiting for their repatriation flights to Sri Lanka.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.